guys, it is Jess and welcome back. So today we are building this, this house is actually one that I'm super duper proud of. It's probably in my opinion, the best house that I have ever built. And I'm not trying to sound like smug or anything, but yeah, I'm just really happy with how this house turned out. But I decided, instead of talking about the build, which I'm not very good at and kind of bores me a little bit, I was going to do a little spooky story time because it's Halloween and spooky stories are awesome, so why not? Now, I will just say these stories are going to be 100% real. They're not fake. So if spooky stories aren't your thing, maybe just mute this video and listen to some nice music, but you should still watch it because it's going to be awesome. Anyway, so there's not really anything I want to say about the build other than I'm super proud of it, and it basically has the main house, it has a garage, an attached utility room and a guest house, and it's got a really cute fun backyard, and that's really all I have to say about that. So let's move on to the spooky stories. Okay, so the first story that I have happened to me, and this one is probably the scariest one I have and the one that is the least explainable. This happened to me a long time ago and I've never been able to find an explanation for it. So let's get started. I would have been in about the 4th grade, and like most young children, I was a major scaredy cat. So I was sleeping in my bedroom, which was at one end of the house, and then my parents' room was at the front of the house. So I was at the back, my parents were at the front. Anyway, there was this really loud thunderstorm and it woke me up. And I remember just being, really frightened. So I ran down into my mum and dad's room and I was like, Mum, can you please come and sleep with me? I'm really afraid. And Mum was like, yep, all right, sure, I'll come and sleep with you. So she left my dad and my baby sister, who was sleeping in a cot. She left them in their bedroom, and then she came down with me to my bedroom. Now, on the way to the bedroom, Mum was like, oh, I just have to go to the toilet. I won't be a minute. And I was really, really afraid. So I made my mum have the toilet door open and I was going to just stand with my back facing her because I was too afraid to have the door shut. I know, pathetic. Anyway, after a couple of minutes, I'm standing there in the dark, can't really see very much, and this kind of black silhouette comes from behind me, from where my mum is, and it moves in front of me. Now, this thing had not a lot of, it had form to it. It wasn't transparent. It wasn't, it wasn't a typical, see-through ghost kind of thing. It honestly looked like a person. It looked so much like a person that at the time, I thought it was my mum. So when this thing started moving towards our kitchen, I followed it because I was like, oh my God, Mum, don't leave me behind. So here I am, little bloody, probably 9 or something, 9-year-old Jess, following this black thing through my house. So we get into the kitchen and I'm like, this is weird. Maybe Mum just wants a drink. Still hadn't hooked on to the fact that I'm not actually following my mum. But she moves on through the kitchen and I'm starting to get a little bit sus at this point. I'm like, what's going on? Why would Mum be doing this? And it walked through the kitchen into the laundry, and then it turned left into the laundry and kind of just disappeared. And I'm standing there and I'm like, what is going on? And I was just about to poke my head into the laundry when from the other end of the house, I hear the toilet flush. And that is the moment I realized that, yeah, Mum had never left for the toilet. She had been there the whole time. Well, I sprinted all the way back to my mum's room, back to the toilet, where my mum was. And I'm like, Mum, I've seen a ghost. Oh my God, oh my God. And she, of course, didn't believe me. And I knew that it wasn't a person because there is no way any person could have, moved. So, as I said, it started from behind me. This thing came from behind me and it came, around me and stood in front of me. There is no way any person could have gotten behind me without me noticing. So I knew it wasn't a person. And Mum was not convinced that it was a ghost. I tried to tell her, Mum, I saw it in the laundry, oh my God. So Mum, thinking that I either had an overactive imagination or maybe saw an actual person, decided to check the house. So she went and checked the laundry. She's like, there's nobody there, you're being ridiculous, you need to just go to sleep now. And I knew that she wasn't going to budge, so I was like, okay, whatever, I'll just ignore it. But I swear, to this day, I still swear, I followed something in my house. I have no idea what it was. It couldn't have been a shadow. It couldn't have been another person. And even if it was another person, I asked my dad the next day if he had left the bedroom that night, and he said no, he had not. Plus, it was too tall to be my dad. The only other person it could have been was my sister, and she was a baby. So unless she somehow, like, crawled out of her crib, grew, you know, however many feet, and then somehow managed to, like, get behind me all without me seeing her, it was nobody. So yeah, as I said, to this day, I still have no idea what that was. Now, that's not the only thing that had happened in the house. Now, I probably didn't say it at the start, but this house that I'm talking about is my parents' house. That was definitely the biggest thing that happened. But there are a lot of other smaller things that used to happen in the house, and they're kind of on their own. They're like, oh, that's not so bad. But when you put them all together, it's kind of, I don't know. When you put them all together, you start to think maybe something was going on. So the smaller things that happened in my house. The first thing that happened was I would often hear the toilet paper roll in the toilet next to my bedroom. The same toilet where the thing was. It would kind of just like sound as though someone was just pulling the toilet paper off really fast. And a couple times I'd be like, oh my God, someone has a blood nose, or maybe someone's getting all this toilet paper because they need to clean something up. And when I've gone to have a look, nobody's there. And I'm kind of like, oh, maybe I didn't hear it, just ignore it and go back to bed. But there was definitely more than one occasion, when I had heard this toilet paper roll going off and there was definitely nobody there. And I kind of never investigated it too much because it frightened me. So it was easier for me just to pretend that it didn't happen because I didn't have to be afraid then. The other thing that used to happen was my sister and I, actually my whole family, we had Macintosh computers. And on Macintosh computers, when you press the volume button up and down, it makes this like pop, pop, pop noise. It's kind of a cool noise. Anyway, when this all started to happen, my sister had moved into the bedroom across from me. And at nighttime, I would hear the Macintosh volume control being used. And I'd think, oh my God, like, what is my sister doing? Because it'd be quite persistent. It would be like pop, 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 pop. And I'm like, gosh, she's really driving me insane, you know, being my sister. And I'd like storm in next door to her room and be like, can you please stop pressing the volume control button? It's really annoying. Like, pick a volume and just be done with it. And she'd be like, I don't know what you're talking about. That's not me. I thought that was you. And we'd just both kind of look at each other and be like, all right, well, night, night, and just leave. We kind of had this understanding, like, we don't talk about it. But I will never forget this one night. It was going mad, like the popping noise. And I was like, oh, Abby, stop. My sister's name is Abby. And I kind of had a suspicion that she was playing a trick on me. So I was like, nah, that's it. I'm going to bust you. So I open up the door. And she's laying there in the pitch darkness, laying in her bed with her eyes wide open, just staring at me. And I was just like, that's not you, is it? And she's like, no. And I was like, yeah, all right, night girl, bye. And just went back to bed. I don't even know what happened for the rest of the night, but I was not questioning it any further. So that used to happen all the time. And that was kind of annoying, really, because it was pretty freaky and we just had to pretend that it didn't exist. The other thing that used to happen in the house was things would go missing sometimes, and then they would kind of show up in plain sight. And like, once again, I guess that could sort of be explained, but at the same time, I mean, when it happens so many times, it's not, it gets harder and harder to just explain away. So the first two incidents that like really that I remember, I had lost, I think it was just like a pair of socks for hockey. I play field hockey. So I'd lost my hockey socks, and I remember opening up my sock drawer, looking through all the socks. Then before I closed the sock drawer, I remember just kind of like scanning the socks that were all on the top, closing the drawer, leaving the bedroom, going to my mum, hey mum, I can't find my socks. And she was like, oh, maybe you should have another look. Did you have a boy look? And I'm like, Mum, I looked all through the drawer. They're not there. And she's like, just go and have one more look. So I was like, okay, fine. Walked back to my room. There's only been a few minutes gap, like, you know, and it was only me and my mum at home and my little sister, who was quite young at the time. So I went back, and I kid you not, I opened up that sock drawer and my hockey socks were sitting on the very top of the sock pile. And I was like, nah, get out of town. And I'm picked up my socks and I'm like, Mum, you trickster, how did you do that? Like, how did you get the socks there without me seeing you? And she's looking at me like, I don't even know what you're talking about. And I'm like, no, Mum, they were not in there and they're in here now. You must have done it. And she was like, no, I didn't put the socks in there. So then I started telling her that I thought it was a ghost. And then she just gave me her usual, oh my God, Jess, stop being so stupid. So yeah, that happened. And then another time I lost my mouth guard, once again for field hockey. I used to always lose my hockey stuff. I'm hopeless. And this time I had like completely ransacked my bedroom trying to find it, because Mum was like, if you don't find your mouth guard, it's coming out of your pocket money, because I'm sick of buying you new things, because I lost stuff all the time. I was hopeless. So I ransacked my room trying to find it, and I was like, no, I definitely cannot find it. So I remember walking to my bedroom door, scanning the bedroom, just making sure, having like one final look, concluding that the mouth guard was nowhere to be seen. I left my bedroom for like a minute and I was like, hey Mum, we need to go down to the shops. I'm gonna just go get ready. And she was like, okay, fine. Walked back to my bedroom, and once again, I kid you not, the mouth guard was sitting in the middle of the floor. And again, I was like, nah, no way, this can't be happening. And I didn't even bother telling my mum about it this time. I was like, don't worry, Mum, I just found it. And she comes in like, oh yeah, of course you did. Oh, you weren't looking hard enough, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, no, like, you know what I mean? Like, it happened more than once. It was so weird how these things would go missing and then all of a sudden pop back up again. And this actually happened to my sister as well. And this one is frightening. Like, this one, when she tells me, I'm like, ugh. She's only told me like twice because she doesn't like talking about it because it frightens her. But basically, she was doing her makeup one morning, and we live in Australia, but we do visit the States. And when we go over there, we often buy like a whole heap of makeup because it's so much cheaper over in the States. And it's also like there's a better variety. So we often have like a whole heap of backup makeup in the bathroom. So my sister was doing her foundation in her bedroom, and she said that she dropped the foundation bottle. She saw it roll underneath the lounge that was in her bedroom, because she has like a lounge in her bedroom. So she dropped it, she watched it roll underneath the lounge, and she was like, oh, that's annoying. So she got down and tried to find it, and she said that she just couldn't find the foundation. It just appeared to have rolled under the lounge and then just kind of disappeared. And she was like, in a bit of a hurry, and just was like, yep, I don't have time for any of this. So she went into the bathroom, which is right near her room, just to go and get the backup foundation. And she said that she'd like nearly finished the one she was using. So it wasn't like she was being, ridiculous and getting a whole new bottle for no reason. So she went and got the new bottle, and as she was walking back into her bedroom, she noticed that one of the shelves in her cupboards had something on it. And she was like, that's really weird. And when she got closer, she realized that the foundation she had just dropped under her lounge had somehow gotten on the shelf. She has no idea how. Like, Mum hadn't gone into her room. No one else was home but her and Mum. And in the time it took her to just go from the bathroom back to her bedroom, this foundation bottle had gone from being under the lounge to sitting on the shelf in her cupboard without her doing anything. And she was like, yeah, I just got my foundation and did my makeup in the bathroom that day, and I've never spoken of it since. And I sometimes ask her to retell the story, and she gets all like cagey about it, and she's like, no, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. So my sister is like very afraid of the paranormal, and I am confident that she wouldn't make that up because she's a bit superstitious as well. Like, she would never make something like that up because she's just afraid of the paranormal. So, I mean, it's not my story, but I definitely believe that happened, and similar things have happened to me. So that just for me makes it even more believable. So there was one more little incident to do with our house. And this one, I'm kind of on the fence about this one because it could be explained, but at the same time, when all this other stuff has happened, you just have to wonder, like, what's going on? So I was home alone one night. I can't remember where everybody was. I know my parents were out for dinner somewhere, and I don't know where my sister was. She was probably at a friend's house or something. And my dear old grandmother was like, look, I'll make you some dinner and I'll drop it down to you. And I was like, thank you, because I didn't want to cook. So she dropped me down my dinner, and I remember walking from my bedroom to the front door. And to get from my bedroom, you have to walk like through the living room, and you can see the back door into the garage. So I walked past that back door into the garage, got my dinner, and then as I was walking back in the house towards my bedroom, out of the corner of my eye, I noticed that the back door was open. And I was like, oh, that's really weird. Now, this back door was broken at the time, and it used to like open by itself sometimes, or it wouldn't lock properly and stuff like that. So originally I was kind of like, oh, all right, it's kind of freaky, but the door is broken, so it's probably just opened by itself. So when I went over to close the door, I noticed that my dog, or my parents' dog, was standing right at the back door. Her back was all arched up, and I don't know if you've ever seen when an animal gets a little bit like worked up, or like afraid, or whatever. The fur on their back kind of like puffs up. So that's what this dog was doing. So the fur on its back was sort of like kind of puffed up, and the back was all like arched, and she was just staring at nothing. So she was staring at a particular spot in the garage, but there was like nothing there at all. And I was like, damn, this is freaky. Did the door just open by itself? Did something open it? Is there something in the garage? And it was really weird because I had this strange sense of like calmness about me. Just something was telling me that it was okay. And that's really weird because I'm a scaredy cat, and I'm not used to having a feeling of like calmness when this stuff happens. I'm used to being, frightened out of my brains. So I just was like, Audrey, come on inside. That's the dog's name. And I remember she looked at me, and then she looked back at what she was staring at, and then very slowly walked inside, but she kept on looking over her shoulder at this like crazy spot in the garage. So I don't know, like I've never seen my dog act like that before. It was really creepy, and I don't know, as I said, there's been a few experiences in that house, so I don't know. If you guys have any idea what's going on, or if you've had a similar experience, definitely pop that down in the comments below. I love hearing spooky stories. So that's really all the stories I have involving my house. But I do have 2 more stories to tell. These ones happen to family members. So this first story happened to my grandma, and she's a complete skeptic. Like, she's just not the kind of person who believes in ghosts. She's not the kind of person who, I don't know, everything has an explanation to her, and she's just kind of, I don't know how to explain it. She's just pretty meh about most things. But she has this one story, and she swears it's true. So her daughter, who is my auntie, had an ex-husband. So let's just call him Don, because it's sort of, all this is irrelevant to the story. The dude's name was Don, and unfortunately Don had terminal cancer, and in the last stages of his life they put him into a hospice. Now, a hospice is like where people go in the last stages of their life. It's sort of like nicer than a hospital, I guess, and they just receive care to, I guess, keep them out of pain, and it's just kind of a place where you go and your family can come and visit you, and it's a place where people go to pass away. So that's what that is. So anyway, my grandma said that she would go and visit him in the hospice, and every single time she would go over to visit him, she would just notice that there would be a black crow sitting on the windowsill, and sometimes the crow would be there from the beginning of the visit, sometimes it would, show up halfway through, but regardless, there was always this random black crow sitting on the windowsill, and she said she just noticed it because it was just strange that it was there every single time. Anyway, Don passed away, and my mum and my grandma were at his funeral, and they were sitting at the very back because I guess they weren't super duper close to him, so they were just sitting at the back out of everybody else's way, and they were having the funeral in a church, and at the back of the church there were these 2 doors that they had kept open, and my grandma said she was sitting at the seat, and they kind of heard this shuffling sort of noise coming from behind them, and they turned around and hopping into the church was a black crow. And my grandma was like, I swear it was the crow that used to sit on the windowsill. And I mean, all black crows look pretty much the same. So whether it was the same one or not, I don't know. But this crow apparently jumped into the church, and then it sat on a table at the very back of the church, and it stayed there for like the entire funeral and waited until the funeral was over before it left again. So I don't know, man. Like, I think that's pretty creepy. Like, you see this crow every single day at the hospice, and then next minute a crow shows up to the funeral. Yeah, I don't know. For me, that's pretty creepy, but who knows? I mean, it's up to you to decide what to make of that one, but that's sort of one of my, like, kind of favorite paranormal stories, because I just think it is so creepy. And regardless of whether it is a paranormal story or not, I think it's pretty cool, because I have actually heard that apparently crows are very intelligent and can make like friendships with people or something like that. So even if there was a completely scientific explanation, I think that's pretty cool that this like random crow just like befriended Don. I don't know. Once again, guys, if you have any ideas, pop that down below. So now it's time for my final story. So this one happened to my auntie, and my auntie is the kind of person who believes that she is quite sensitive to paranormal things. And she was saying that one night she was awoken sort of very early in the morning to really bad chest pains, and she said that they were excruciating. Like, she honestly thought that she was having a heart attack, and she was hyperventilating, and she was sweaty and afraid, and just really woke up in a huge panic and in a lot of pain. And she said she kind of managed to calm herself down, and all the pain kind of just went away. So she thought maybe she'd had a panic attack or something. So she went from being, you know, in quite a, I guess, a seriously bad way to kind of being okay again. And she was like, oh, yep, I've just had a panic attack or something, and decided to go back to sleep. The next morning, she awoke to some really sad news that one of her cousins had passed away in the middle of the night. And that cousin had passed away from a heart attack around about the same time that my auntie woke up with severe chest pains. Yeah, that's a true story. And I have heard stories like this before, so I think that that is pretty spooky, to be honest, because, as I said, that's like a thing. I've heard that happening to people before, and once again, my auntie is not the kind of person to lie. You can take all of this as you want to take it, but I truly believe all of these stories, and yeah, I don't know. I think they're all pretty creepy. So, guys, that's all the stories that I have for you. I kind of hope that I don't have to tell anymore, because paranormal stuff really, it interests me, but at the same time, it really freaks me out. I don't know. Like, on one hand, I'm like, I want to do a seance. And then on the other hand, I'm like, no way, I'd never do anything like that. And in all honesty, I'd probably never do like a seance or anything, because I think that they're dangerous. But yeah, I really hope that you enjoyed my spooky stories, and I really hope that you enjoyed this build. I have furnished this house, but it's going to be a separate speed build, because when I was editing the footage, I was going to put it all in one, and it would have honestly been at like nearly an hour, and I don't expect anyone to watch me build for an hour. Like, that's as boring as it gets, guys. I'm sorry, but yeah, no one wants to watch that much building all at once. So yeah, I'm just going to leave it here, guys. Put a little bit of music on. I'm going to put creepy music on because Halloween. We don't even celebrate Halloween here in Australia, but I'm getting into the spirit because all of my, you know, sim friends are over in the States where they celebrate Halloween. So I figured, why not? So yeah, guys, thank you again for watching. Watch out for part 2. That'll be out really soon. As I said, I've already decorated the house, so it's just a matter of like uploading the video. So I do daily uploads, so if you enjoyed what you saw today, make sure you check back tomorrow. If you want to subscribe, that would be awesome, but if you could leave a like and a comment, that would be fabulous. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and I really hope that you enjoyed.